But so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, can I introduce to you the Foreign Minister of Australia, the Hon Julie Bishop MP.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for your patience. What a beautiful view it is here, and having grown up in the Adelaide Hills, I recall very well spending some lost summers here in Robe. And as a university student, I'm sorry, I was one of those loutish types that used to come down here and spend holidays in Robe. So it's wonderful to be back here with my friend and colleague in Tony Pasin and Senator David Fawcett. Tony mentioned that I've been doing a few things on the world stage. When I first became the Foreign Minister last September, within days I had to be in New York to chair the Security Council, and it was a little bit daunting, but a colleague of mine, the Canadian Foreign Minister, said, don't worry about this foreign affairs stuff, just watch out for three things: protocol, alcohol, cholesterol. Alcohol, cholesterol are the three things I had to watch for. Well, if only life were that simple. 2014 has been an extraordinary year in a number of ways, and it's really brought home to us that the world is so interconnected that an event on one side of the world can have an impact on Australia in ways that we would never have imagined. And probably the most dramatic example of that was the shooting down of a commercial plane over commercial airspace in Malaysian airline MH17. The wreckage landed in what is essentially a war zone, and the 298 passengers and crew on board were killed, including 38 Australian citizens and residents. And suddenly, Australia found itself in the middle of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, in the middle of the Europe-NATO geostrategic issues, as we fought our way through the politics of the occasion to retrieve the bodies of the Australians who were lying in a field in Ukraine. And it made me realise what a strong voice Australia can have. We are a significant country, we are a significant economy, and when we say something about geopolitical affairs because it affects our people and our interests, the world will listen. We've also been involved in the Middle East in ways that I hadn't anticipated. This issue of foreign terrorist fighters leaving Australia and going to take part in terrorist activities in Syria and Iraq is truly frightening. It is the #1 national security issue for us as Australians, trying to prevent young Australians in particular from being seduced by this terrorist ideology and putting their own lives at risk, as well as adding to the suffering of the people of Syria and Iraq. And of course the threat to us is that they become experienced battle-hardened terrorists and come back to Australia to seek to cause harm to our people here. And then the worst fear, I guess, that we've had as a government, these so-called lone wolf attacks. The events in Martin Place in Sydney the other day made us all think, surely not in Australia, as a deranged criminal assumed the cause of ISIL, that terrorist organisation, in order to hold Australians hostage, people just going about their daily lives, hold them hostage and inflicting harm on them. So in that regard, it's been a pretty tough year. But as much as global terrorism is a security risk, it's a real and present danger, one of the other big risks is the state of the global economy. And if there were a downturn in Europe, if there were a downturn in China, if China didn't continue to buy our goods and our commodities at the level they are now, then we really would have some challenges ahead of us, because Australia is not in as robust and resilient a position as it should be. When we left office in 2007, there was no government debt. There was a $20 billion surplus. We had 7 successive budget surpluses. There was money in the bank. But now all that's gone, and we've got massive government debt, deficits as far as the eye can see, and we are desperately trying to repair the budget so that we can be in a strong position to resist any external shocks that might come our way. We're working hard to make Australia a more attractive place to do business, getting rid of unnecessary taxes like the carbon tax and the mining tax, trying to get rid of the over-regulation that makes it so challenging to do business in this country, and reducing the size of government by trying to reduce government spending where it's not necessary or it's wasteful. And we're also focusing on growing the economy, growing the revenues that we can gather as a nation. And that's why we were so focused on delivering free trade agreements with China, with Japan, with South Korea. And I can't think of a region in Australia that would benefit more from the free trade agreements than the southeast, given the horticulture, the vineyards, the rock lobster industry, beef. There are so many items that that huge growing middle class in China is looking for, and you've got the top quality here. So I hope that through Tony Pasin's advocacy and through your ingenuity, you're able to take advantage of the free trade agreement opportunities that are presenting themselves. We want to focus on our region, the Indian Ocean, Asia Pacific. This is our part of the world, it's our neighbourhood, it's where we can have the most influence. And so hopefully over the next 2 years, in the lead up to the next election, our foreign policy will return to the Asia Pacific. So whether it's our defence and military capability, our economic and trading capacity, or our diplomatic and development assistance efforts, the Indian Ocean, the Asia Pacific, is where we will focus our efforts. We have adopted what we call economic diplomacy as our policy for foreign affairs. Just as traditional diplomacy sought peace, economic diplomacy seeks prosperity. And we want Australia to be the most peaceful, the most prosperous country that it can be. Thank you very much for being here today. I'm delighted to answer any questions. Tony has labelled this a Q&A, a bit like the ABC, but...
I'm more attractive than Tony Jones.
I'm glad you said that.
I'm more independent.
I was about to segue into a Tony Jones comment, but I'm glad you did. And may I also, on behalf of the Liberal leadership, thank Tony Pasin for being such a powerful advocate for this region. In the party room, he never misses an opportunity to stand up and pass on the views and concerns and thoughts of his constituents here in the southeast. So Tony, it's been a fantastic debut on your behalf, and I hope you go on from strength to strength in the years ahead. So thank you for having me here today.